Hello, welcome to Keeping BZ Fury. I am Zach, joined by Brandon, and this is post-commentary. I am so thankful it's post-commentary. You won't be able to tell because my gameplay is going to look bad anyway. It has been quite a few
Zach,
years
you did a full run
played.
of this game, and how long
did it take?
Yes, how long did it take to edit all this down?
Much longer than it should have. So, viewer, it's not spoiling anything. You can see the time of the YouTube video. It's 45 and almost 30 seconds. It's 45 minutes and 26 seconds. Let me tell you that the recording was not 45 minutes and 26 seconds. The entire recording was, I think, 2 hours and 40 minutes. With over half that time being dedicated to the final boss. And I'll talk about her when we get there. But in order to get to that, I will start with the disclaimer that I'm not showing off every phase of every boss. I'm going to try to show off as much of each boss as possible. I am very, very rusty. There was probably a point where I could have done every boss fight in a little under an hour, or maybe like an hour 15 max, when I used to play this a little bit more and was more used to the boss patterns and I remembered all the game mechanics. But for like the first couple of bosses, I'm trying to get back into a groove. So like here, for example, we started on phase 1 and you can tell which phase the boss is on. I apologize, I don't mean to go this quickly, but top right is the boss's health. Blue health is usually for what I'm calling the bullet health sections, this segment. And then the orange health is typically for the melee segments. And then they have squares underneath that health bar, and that's how many phases they have. Which I honestly wish more bosses would do. Case usually doesn't have phases. Kingdom Hearts usually has like different health bar colors. But like things like that to let you know how long the boss is actually
Or,
going to be.
sometimes there's a health bar that is not even part of the boss's main health bar. It is just, oh, they have a secret health bar. Once you take down that health bar, then their health bars actually start draining down.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna kill you.
Straight and to the point.
I love Furi so much. It is one of my favorite games, despite the fact that a lot of elements of it that are outside the gameplay aren't my favorite. Story, I think, is like, I don't really care about the plot. It's very, very vague. You get most of it through boss dialogue. I will say boss dialogue, I think, is pretty good. I think the voice acting in the game is pretty good. Music, I think it's good, but it's not something I go listen to outside of playing the game. I do like the graphics, but mostly I just love this game because I love boss-focused games, and this is a game that's pretty much all bosses. Although, I'm playing the speedrun mode, because the speedrun mode cuts out all of the walking in between all of the bosses. You would normally be walking to each of these bosses, and it takes a long time, and there's a guy narrating. It's not, like I said, it's not badly voice acted or really even badly written, but it's just long, and you're not doing much besides walking. So I just do the speedrun mode just to focus on the part I like. I beat the first boss. This is the second one. The first boss is pretty self-explanatory. It helps you get used to the mechanics. What I was doing right there with that stance, I completely forgot how it worked at the time. But if you tilt the right analog stick in any direction, he'll enter a stance, and if you stay in the stance the whole time until he glows red, you get a power-up, and it'll massively increase the next hit you do. So that's something you want to try to sneak in if you're trying to speedrun. And if you can combine that with the charge attack, if you hit a fully charged charge attack, you'll put the boss in a stun that allows you to do like a quick cutscene attack, and that'll deal a whole lot of damage.
Yeah, when I played it, Zach, I either got to this boss or the boss after this, but then I was struggling.
Yeah, this boss is honestly really unpredictable, especially like your first time. Like all of these bosses took me so long my first time playing Furi. But I was surprised because like I said, I hadn't played Furi in quite a few years. I actually don't lose a life until the 5th boss, I believe. One thing I do like about this game is, at least in my opinion, the difficulty is very fair. The game gives you lots of opportunities to get little bits of health back. In bullet hell segments, there will be the green projectiles. If you could shoot those, health pickup will drop. If you can parry attacks, that will give you some health back. And every time you reach a new phase, you get one of your lives back, which your lives are the 3 squares below the health bar on the top left. You get one life back, and you get a full restore in between every phase.
Oh, and there's some QTEs as well.
Yeah, they're pretty much all just shake the left and right analog stick. I know you didn't get super far, but what would you say was your first impression of Furi when you played it, Brandon?
Love the art style. I love how it tells its story pretty kind of wordlessly for the most part outside of some of the boss lines. It just feels like nothing really feels quite like Furi. And yeah, I also do enjoy the soundtrack as well. It's tough. Yes, it is fair to the point where you are able to get health back in certain areas, but as the phases go on, and especially the length of some of the bosses and the number of different phases, I've had a lot of problems. Would I go back and finish it? Maybe someday, but on some level, I'm actually thankful to be watching a video where someone else suffered through all of it.
We get to the suffering in the final boss. Oh my gosh. But for the most part, some boss segments, some boss phases can take a pretty lengthy amount of time. My original plan was showing every phase, but just cutting out, I would show enough of a phase to show the entire pattern, and then I would just kind of cut out, once the audience gets the point. But even with that video was going to be over an hour long, maybe even an hour 15, depending on how much of the final boss I wanted to leave in. So I was just like, you know what, I would just show a decent amount of the boss and give more of a... I can't think of the right word, I'm very bad at vocabulary, but if you want to see more of the boss phases for yourself, audience, you can go get it on Good Old Games. It's a very good game. I don't want this to feel like a replacement of actually playing the game, despite the fact that I'm showing off every boss. Sort of attract mode. You can think of it as like a overly detailed, very spoilerific attract mode.
Right. You can consider this video a Furi, funky mode. Oh man. Whew. On to the next one.
Yeah, I quite like a lot of the bosses. I would say this boss is one of my favorites. The phases, I would say in terms of phase length, this guy has some of the longer phases. But I think he does a lot of cool things with the bullet hell segments. Like here with the shields. Your bullets will bounce off of those shields, and you kind of create your own projectiles that you have to start dodging. One thing I'm very, very bad at in this game that really kind of gets me killed during the final boss, I seem to not be very, very good at dashing to get through the projectiles. Like, for example, I call those the mirror projectiles. You can't shoot through them. Most projectiles you can shoot. The mirror projectiles you have to dash through, or you have to parry. Which I actually did almost an entire my first playthrough of Furi. I went the whole game without knowing you could parry projectiles. And there are certain projectiles that you really do want to parry. Usually the purple ones. In terms of in terms of the boss messing with bullets again, he stops time, so if you try shooting, you just create more things in your way. So here you can't use your gun. Yeah, the length of your dash, what always fucks me up, I think, is the length of your dash depends on how long you hold the A button. And I never seem to find the right amount of holding down the A button to dash. I always seem to dash into the thing I'm trying to dodge.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's part of the problem when I'm also trying to do this type of dodging in a game is the thing of sometimes you overestimate or underestimate the full like width of some of these like large wave type projectiles, and you end up just still inside of it when you finish your dash.
Yes, yeah, that's the main thing that gets me hit. Is that, especially for some of the bigger projectiles, are those ground wave attacks. I never seem to know how long I'm supposed to hold the dash in order to go over it. I always seem to just clip it. It also doesn't help. You won't really see this until the final boss, but I really need a new controller because the right analog stick is not... I wouldn't say it's like broken, but it's not very good.
Let's go back.
And it makes aiming during the bullet hell segments pretty difficult.
So we've entered that melee phase you were talking about.
Yep, anytime you see...
but now, back to projectiles.
Anytime you see the boss go orange once their health is empty, you can hit them to enter the melee phase. I don't know if their health recovers if you don't hit them in time. I actually don't know what happened. I assume if you just don't touch them, they don't get health back, or maybe they get a little bit of health back. But I hope they don't just get a full heal if you don't get there in time. That would be annoying. But I've never found that to be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, one of my favorite types of games is always games that have a major focus on bosses. I guess you could say almost all games have some kind of boss focus, but I would say some do more than others. Furi, especially. No More Heroes 1 and 2. I haven't played 3 yet, but No More Heroes 1 I really, really like. No More Heroes 2 I kind of found obnoxious. It's like overly easy for 90% of it, and then the final boss sucks. Hate the final boss of No More Heroes 2. But do you have any games with... I guess they don't have to be boss fight centric, but do you have a game that has like all your favorite boss fights? Or just favorite boss fights in general?
This is going to be a strange, or I guess a more obscure choice for some people, but in terms of the Batman Arkham game series, my favorite boss fights are actually in Arkham Origins. I really like the boss designs of each of the villains you encounter in that game, the variety, the set pieces, and the fact that there's not as much scripting. You really feel like you're fighting them, and it's all based around like what that villain's ability is, like an enemy that poisons you and takes down your sight, so you have to really use your senses to fight around them, or when you're trying to dodge around a Firefly shooting his flamethrowers at you on the bridge, or even like the opening fight with Killer Croc is, despite being one of the first things you do in the game, is noticeably difficult because of his large size and his shockwaves. I like all the bosses in Arkham Origins a lot. Otherwise, I would think of the poor and even more obscure choice that only Zach, I think, would be aware of, is the Sonic fan game Eggman Hates Furries, which I definitely plan to do on BZ at some point, which is nothing but a Sonic game that is just a physics-based boss rush, with bosses all based around different physics engines that all feel really awesome and get consistently more epic with each one. Yeah, like you, Zach, I love boss fight-centered games, and I think probably the most iconic example that a lot of games have taken from over the years is good old Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, Shadow of the Colossus would actually really fit. I still haven't played Shadow of the Colossus, but I know Alec, I think, really, really likes that game.
But that's the thing, right? There's different ways to do a boss rush game. Because here, of course, with Furi, we got, no, it's just the bosses. You defeat one, they're lengthy, you go to the next one. But a lot of them, it's, when you're developing this type of game, you have to consider pacing, and you have to consider, what type of game you want to make going from place to place. Because, of course, in Shadow of the Colossus, you fight the boss, but then you have to journey to the next boss. There's no enemies. You just have to find your way there and use your sword-like compass to guide you to figure out if you need to go underground or up on top of something. And that's honestly where I ended up stopping with Shadow, because I got to a point where I just genuinely could not figure out where it wanted me to head to next or how to get up on top of something. Other games, they'll have just like a little bit of like, because like, while it's hard to necessarily say that it's over entirely a boss rush game, I feel it's kind of fitting to call Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance a boss rush game, because ultimately the bosses are the point of that entire game. Yes, there are sections where you run through fighting normal enemies with your katana for a bit and testing out the game's, slicing physics engine, but really that game is about the bosses. They are the point of the story. They are the point of the character, and in terms of the game mechanics, they're where everything comes together.
Yeah, I would say Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is just on the cusp of being boss fight centric. I would say, of course, I mean, you could say this for a lot of games, but I think Revengeance, yeah, the boss fights really, really are a highlight. Especially like the music for them is very, very good, and they're like always the best fights of the game. Especially what's his name? Jet. Oh my gosh, what's his name? It's usually the one everybody thinks of. That he's like the guy that kicks Raiden's ass at the beginning of the game. My brain wants to say like Jet something.
Yeah, it's Jet something. I know what you're talking about, Zach. Yeah, I've been meaning to get to Black Myth Wukong, because that's a game that is also entirely centered around its boss fights. I think there's some regular enemies, but like not much. And I mean, Dark Souls and the Souls game, like those, I guess it is a similar case where it's like, no, I mean those games are much more than their boss fights. There's tons to explore, and there's tons of moments of just you suffering deaths from just enemies, around corners, or having, some sort of status effect you didn't expect them to have. But when people talk about the Souls games, admittedly, they're mostly talking about the boss fights.
Yeah, I don't know much about Dark Souls, but I know, like, in Elden Ring, I would say Elden Ring has a lot of pretty good bosses, and also some bosses that I wish would fall off a cliff. Although, speaking of bosses I want to fall off a cliff, I would say Sekiro is a bit more boss-focused than some of the other Souls-like games. Like, not that it's mostly just all boss fights, but I feel like Sekiro, because that game's a lot more parry, one-on-one centric than a lot of other Dark Souls games. Than a lot of other Souls-likes by FromSoft. I would say Sekiro is quite boss fight focused. And whether or not that boss fight is fun seems to be fucking at the whims of 50-50 of a coin flip. Some of the bosses are really, really good and make me love Sekiro, and some of the bosses really, really suck and make me go, why is this boss fight in this game? My immediate example, there's a lot I could pick, but the one I immediately think of is one of the early bosses, the Bull. Because Sekiro is supposed to, or the idea I got anyway, is Sekiro is a very samurai duel kind of Soulsborne, where the idea is like you can parry your opponent's attacks, and by parrying you can break their posture, and by breaking their posture you can get in like, you can reduce their health down, but if you break their posture, you can get, like, an insta-kill. The Bull does not have anything you can parry, to my knowledge, and I didn't know how I was really supposed to beat the Bull. I just kind of beat my head against a brick wall until I beat it, and then I looked up online what you're supposed to do, You're supposed to find an arm upgrade that allows you to shoot fireworks. You shoot the fireworks, and then the bull falls over and goes crazy and becomes easy to hit. And I was so mad when I discovered that.
I will never give up, stranger. The stakes are too high.
Because, like, it's one thing for bosses to have weaknesses, you know? Like, bosses have had weaknesses since, like, RPGs with elemental weaknesses, or, like, Mega Man, with certain robot masters being weak to other weapons. But I feel like the bull was way too designed around you having that arm upgrade. Which, I mean, to be fair, I probably should have just had it, but I'm very bad at finding things. But still, it just didn't feel like that bull fit the game design philosophy of Sekiro. Or at the very least, how my brain wanted Sekiro to play anyway.
Right. Yeah. The other example, Zach, that I've played, of course, is Lies of P, which, while not an exact comparison to Sekiro, is also based around getting straight into enemies' faces and parrying them. And really just, like, you do have a dodge in the game that you can use, and there are some boss attacks where you do want to get the hell out of the way. But Lies of P is very much about, no, you got your sword, you want to get in there, and you have to be ready to man those parries if you actually want to do some major damage. But it's not like, it's not as unforgiving as Sekiro, where if you are not able to knock down their gauge, it just fills back up again if you're not being quick enough. But you do have to get in there if you actually want to survive, because some of those bosses are really tough. Like, Lies of P is one of those games where I use summons pretty much the whole time, because some of the ones later on are get absolutely insane.
Oh, I didn't know Lies of P had summons.
So it's not in the Dark Souls way where you connect to an online interface and have, like, summoning in people to help you. It's all like AI designed summons, but yeah, you collect a certain type of. I think it literally is like a piece of a star, like you're wishing upon a star, like the reference to the Disney movie, and you use it outside the boss fight, and it wishes in like a little double of you that then comes into the fight and helps you out for a bit until it's defeated. Very useful, especially for distracting the boss's AI so you can get behind them.
Yeah, that's typically what I used the Ashes for when I was playing Elden Ring.
Yeah. I mean, I tried to be that guy when I was playing those Dark Souls games where I was just like, okay, I'm at least going to try each of these bosses just by myself and see if I can do this. But especially when I got towards the end, there were a couple bosses at the end of Dark Souls 3 where I was just like, fuck this game. And I just immediately started finding somebody else that had already fought this boss to just come in here and help me deal with them. Though it is pretty funny with the online components of the Dark Souls games, because you sometimes get into situations where a dude just comes in, and before you can even really, contribute and, play co-op with them, this is like some crazy Dark Souls player that's played this game a million times, so they just come in and decimate them in like 15 seconds.
Yeah, I've actually never used the online features of any of the Soulsborne games. I'm just, like, I'm not entirely against multiplayer, but I really mostly do just like to play on my own.
Is your escape worth so much suffering? So many deaths?
I'm also afraid of being judged.
I'm here to protect
I do,
all
yeah.
believe in. You must listen to
Oh no, I'm
reason.
similar, Zach.
There's no
I would
other
rather. There is a little bit of something that's taken away when I'm doing it on my own, but I also don't think it's like, as we've talked about in prior BZs, that it should be a gatekeeping thing since these features are designed into the game. And yeah, there was a certain boss where I'm like, I just want to get through this, so I will have somebody help me. And there are even some bosses in Lies of P, Zach, even when I'm using the AI summon, still really hard because their attacks have so much range, and even distracting them, you still end up getting into a situation where they become less predictable because they're following your AI around as it moves. And so you end up getting slapped around because you're trying to figure out where you're supposed to stand while the AI is finding their own way. That's another great series of games that are all about based around trying to do just focused on boss fights. Because otherwise, I mean, I'm trying to think of like other games where it's really the focus. and not just because we talk about stuff like just how memorable the, Nightmare Before Christmas Oogie's Revenge is because the boss fights are based around musical numbers, which is awesome. But that game is also stretches of levels that are DMC type combat.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would call Oogie's Revenge a boss fight centric game, but I would say like those are really the highlights. The music for those, they're usually remixes of Nightmare Before Christmas music, except for Dr. Finkelstein, I believe was his name, the brain doctor guy. He has his own original song, and I really like that. But another one that kind of comes to mind, I don't know if this one would count either. Kingdom Hearts, at the very least, has some pretty epic boss battles.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you're like all the examples we're talking about, we're building up to the boss, but they are the parts of the game I think about the most, especially some of the ones in later games, especially Dream Drop Distance, where they get really difficult, even in like the main story bosses.
I hate young Xehanort. Fucking hate young Xehanort.
I hate young Xehanort, Zach, but I honestly even more hate. No, not Xemnas. Oh, no. Ansem? The one that was controlling Riku originally. When Riku goes up against that guy and he brings his balls out, which only makes sense in context to what I'm saying. Those are insane to dodge.
I hate... Oh my gosh. You know, like, when I originally recorded this, I was ready to be like, oh, I'm gonna go into angry gamer mode when it comes to this game's final boss. But honestly, I'm starting to think of other final bosses that I'm like, you know what? I kind of hate them more than Fury's final boss. Like, No More Heroes 2, I think, has a worse final boss. Mostly just because you're fighting in a cramped spot and the camera sucks.
Yep, I know what you're talking about, Zach. Because, like, with the first game, I would say overall things are at least a little more balanced, while with No More Heroes 2, while you think it would be the better game, where it kind of streamlines and gets rid of the kind of tedious open world stuff, a lot of the boss fights in 2 just end up being more frustrating than fun for me.
Yeah, I don't think No More Heroes 2 is as memorable as 1. 1, I think, has like really good boss fights, and also just a, like, I think it's just a really good game in general. I don't know what it is about No More Heroes 2, but like, I think about the moment at the mall where you fight a whole bunch of dudes, and it's so mindless because they're so easy to defeat. You just spend you spend an hour trying to you spend an hour defeating guy after guy after guy, and then you just go fight the boss. And then No More Heroes 2 does that thing where you start at rank 50, I think, and the game gives you this idea that, oh, you might be fighting a whole bunch of bosses, but then no, you fight, I think, cheerleaders or football players in a mech, and once you beat them in a giant mech fight, it brings you all the way up to 10 or 9 or something. And it's just like, oh, okay.
Because it counts as like 15 bosses, Zach. Yeah, I don't know how 3 is. Like, now that it has like a PS5 version out, I'm curious to try that because I've heard just all the technical issues and the terrible frame rate problems the original Nintendo Switch version had. So now that it's a little more polished, I'm curious to see how it is, though some friends that have played it have told me it definitely has a bit of an unfinished vibe.
Yeah, I mean, like, I gotta stop saying like. I should be a better commentator, damn it. Bosses are cool for, I think, pretty obvious reasons. They are not only a good test of your skills and everything you've learned in the game up to that point, I think they're usually the best combination of the story and the gameplay coming together. Because the story, as well as the gameplay, have been building up to you fighting this person. But not Fury specifically, because you don't see any of these bosses before you fight them. In between, you'll be walking towards them, and you'll get some backstory on them from the narrator, but you don't really see them. You don't interact with them beforehand. But I still think the bosses are pretty cool. The night guy we fought is one of my favorites, and then the guy before the final boss is another one of my favorites. Their dialogue, despite you not knowing them for very long, their dialogue does give a good view into their personality.
Get back up. You can't give up now.
Yeah, like it's minimal, but it's effective. And I mean, ultimately, while I appreciate that touch, obviously to give you further kind of intrigue to fight each boss. I mean, that's, you know, this game is about that. Like, if I try to think about games where bosses gave me an extreme amount of satisfaction for finally beating them, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of ones where I was like, yes, finally, I took them down. Because it's like, in Freedom Planet, the final boss of Freedom Planet is Lord Brevin, a guy that is just murders indiscriminately, is just a kind of a petty prick and an asshole and a dictator. And his boss fight is so much harder than anything else in the game. He is relentless with the attacks. He just slaughters you inside and out without any hope. It's like the type of boss that you understand why in the second Freedom Planet they now gave you like a block and parry you can do. Because his attacks just swarm you. However, despite how insanely frustrated I was with that boss, how many attempts it took to take him down, when I got him, I found it immensely satisfying. And it's partially because of just how much the story had built him up and how much I hated him.
You have it in you. Let it out. I want to see you shine.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of bosses that were satisfying to me, and I wouldn't say they weren't satisfying in the gameplay way, but I'm trying to think of bosses that were satisfying in more of a story way. Most of the ones that come to mind right now are Undertale and Deltarune.
I mean, certainly Undertale's is a fascinating final boss because you get to see both sides of the true evil of Flowey while also seeing the true nature of, you know, the person that he was trying to be a recreation of, and, you know, what their true soul is like in fighting them. Because it's like one of those neat boss fights where ultimately you don't hate this person, but you do have to, you know, go up against them and use, you know, the techniques you've learned of not fighting to finally show your true heart and, you know, take them down. And but then I'm trying to think of other examples where the actual fight is a why, like, it's just the satisfaction.
You have more strength than you think. Try and stay with me through this.
I wasn't just thinking about final bosses. I was thinking about just bosses in general. And I think Undertale does a really good job because not only do you really get to know a lot of the characters. I've never done the genocide. I can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it. But, you know, doing the pacifist, you try to use their personality through the act command to try to get them to peacefully end the boss fight. And that could be really satisfying.
While I am taking it back to final bosses here, I am very satisfied by the final boss of Ys 10, because that boss, without giving too many spoilers away, is not actually a boss you hate or a extremely like negative or sad moment. It's actually a boss where the motivations are positive and you actually really like this character and you're trying to do something good for them by doing this fight. And I found that really interesting and quite unique and satisfying. But, Zach, I'm guessing by your reaction, is this the boss you've been waiting to talk about?
No, but it's after her. She's more of a platforming section, or as much of a platforming section as the game could be without jumping. She's more of a platforming section than the final boss. No, after her
What are you doing?
is when we're going to get to the final boss. I'm not a big fan of this boss. I don't think she's bad, and I see why it's here. It's this climactic moment of, yes, if I beat her, I can escape. If I could just get out this door. So I think she makes sense for the story in her place, but for the boss right before the final boss, she's really, really simple, but I'm fine with that because... oh, the final boss.
Stop! You can't go out.
Oh,
there.
I can think of another
Understand?
really
In a
memorable,
world where there's
and this is
anxiety.
kind of strange because it's not even like a more traditional final boss or anything. So, throughout the game, Spider-Man 2, not the PS5 game, but the original game based off of the Sam Raimi movie, you have sort of a back and forth rivalry with the character Mysterio. He pulls you into a giant stadium to show off his special effects and illusions as a way of, kind of taking down the amount of popularity this Spider-Man guy has. And so you would basically do a platforming crawling section to take this guy out. He then creates a fake alien invasion to take over the Empire State Building. And you have to then take that out. Of course, it's all an illusion. And you have to go into his secret funhouse full of illusions. And they're all like really interesting, cool set pieces that are honestly more interesting than a lot of set pieces in Spider-Man games I've played. Then, after you finally take him out in that section, he escapes one more time. And a number of chapters later into the game's story, you hear about aliens robbing a supermarket. And so you walk down to the supermarket, and Mysterio is just there, trying to like just rob a convenience store because probably because he has nothing left. And so he then sees you and goes, "Okay, fine. I have nothing left to lose. This is our final battle." And his health bar fills up, and it's like 5 different health bars. And then you walk up, punch him once, and all the health bars go down immediately, and he falls over. And it's like this beautiful moment of satisfaction after all the bullshit this guy has put you through in the game and all of the tests he's done and all the ways he's screwed with you. Ultimately, he's just a pathetic little petty dude, and it didn't take anything to take him down. It's a beautiful moment and one of the best moments in any Spider-Man video game.
I'm sorry, Brennan. Like, that does sound fun, but I need to let the bitching commence for a second. Fucking...
All right, go for it.
I hate this boss. I hate this boss. And not even just gameplay perspective. I hate this boss from a story perspective, too. Like, I don't think she's built up, or at the very least, not from my memory. I haven't actually touched the story mode. I've only really done the speedrun mode anytime I played this. But I do remember just seeing her and just being like, "Oh, okay, hi, who are you?" Because, if I could kind of describe, I think he's called the Stranger, the character you play as. He's kind of some kind of alien that corrupts the world. After you beat the woman in the platforming section and you escape, you start walking amongst the grass and flowers, and you find that they all start dying as you're walking. And then here you are suddenly up here, and I'm guessing she's your boss. She sent you to this planet to assimilate it, and you're fighting back against her. And that all sounds fine. The Stranger decides he likes this world, he wants to protect it. I don't know why. This is a world that imprisoned him for I don't know how long. But I get it. He was teaming up with the narrator who was helping him to escape, and he liked him, and maybe the alien did something to him or is about to destroy the planet he's on. I don't know. Just, I don't know. I just remember this not feeling very satisfying from a story perspective, but as a gameplay, that one I could talk more confidently about. Fuck this boss, I hate it. This boss is very, very strict. So remember how I was talking about fairness, about how there's usually plenty of ways to get health back if you're good? They start getting rid of that in this boss fight. In the first, and I think it's only the first phase, the drones on the right and left side will perform a melee attack that you can parry, and that'll give you a tiny bit of health. But after that, nope. They stop giving you the green bullets that'll drop health. So now any damage you take, that's just damage you gotta stick with, buddy. And these bullets hit hard. It's not like they'll kill you in only 2 or 3 hits. They're not that hard hitting, but for a boss fight that is long, they deal a lot of damage and they could kill you very quick. Also, for whatever reason, this boss fight, the patterns go on for so much longer even after you die, which just makes it more frustrating. And I hate this pattern specifically because let's talk about the dash. The dash has a tiny little bit of cooldown, and it's not a very long cooldown, but you'll be surprised how annoying that cooldown will feel, especially in that moment with the lasers. You can kind of make it easier for yourself because you can temporarily disable the drones by hitting them enough, but then you're not hitting the boss and you're making the boss fight phase take even longer. Also, fun game for the viewers at home. Compare the time in the top middle of the screen to the current time code on YouTube right now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was starting to lose my fucking mind during this boss fight.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was about, not quite, but almost 30 minutes of footage cut out. So now I have all 3 lives going into the final phase, and all I can think of is, oh god, I need to eat and I need to use the restroom. Please do not let me game over again. I am thankful that the speedrun mode does not kick you out of the speedrun mode when you get a game over. Like, I don't do the speedrun mode to actually speedrun. I just find it a very convenient way to do all the bosses. I do try to do it quickly, but it's not my main focus. Yeah, I think this boss is just too unforgiving when the rest of the game has been very generous with giving you opportunities for health. I think that would have been very nice for this. Not to mention, a lot of these mirror balls, mirror projectiles, you can't shoot through them, so you constantly have to charge the laser. And the laser is very awkward. And doesn't really do a whole lot of damage. And remember when I was talking about my right analog stick not working very well, it made it even harder to aim the laser where I needed it to. And while firing the laser, you move slower, so it's harder to dodge projectiles. And every time you dash, your laser stops. So you shoot the laser for not even half a second, and then you gotta dash out of the way, then you gotta charge a laser again, to fire laser again, and then you barely get to do any damage with it until you have to dash again. For this final boss, for this final phase of the final boss, just like all the other final phases, all you really have to do is just survive.
You leave us no choice, Ryder. We will annihilate you.
Sorry, Brendan, I'm done. I had to get that all out of my system. But honestly, though, this still isn't one of the worst bosses I've done. Heck, I think Devil Survivor Overclock has a much worse boss. That's not even the final boss. It's actually one... I would say it's the first major boss of the game, and I think that boss is infinitely more irritating than this final boss. It's just... This boss is the reason why it was such a good idea to do this post-commentary. Although, if we did this live, I wouldn't have done every single boss, to be fair.
What a disappointment. You leave us no choice, Ryder. We will annihilate you.
Yeah, it's kind of what I expected, especially like, you know, the final boss of Undertale where Flowey's just dishing an ungodly number of projectiles at you all at the same time, though admittedly I can see why this is more difficult.
Yeah, I'm honestly not very good at bullet hells. I don't really play them often.
Same.
This one is one I like, but it also has that combination of bullet hell mode and melee mode. So, like, it has bullet hell elements, but I wouldn't necessarily call it strictly a bullet hell. Kind of makes me think of Nier in that way. I wouldn't really call Nier a bullet hell, but it has some elements of that.
It has elements of it, you're right. If you want to see Zach playing another game like this that he likes, check out our BZ on Twinkle Star Sprites.
Oh yeah, I was about to say, I knew there was another bullet hell that I kind of enjoy. Yeah, Twinkle Star Sprites is a very interesting take on that. But yes, here I have defeated all of the Guardians. It took me nearly 2.5 hours with, if you look through all the times there before they all went away. The final boss took me, I'm actually surprised that said 55 minutes. I really thought that took me, like, movie length, but I guess it didn't. And that brings us to the end of the video, and thus the end of the post-commentary. Thank you, Brandon, for letting me do this. Furi has been a BZ I've been wanting to do kind of since we started doing BZ. I don't know why it took me this long to do it, but I'm glad to have finally done it. Because I love bosses, and I love talking about bosses.
Yeah, same. There's even more examples I could have given because they are just a part of why I continue to play games to this day, because so many of them, it's just amazing the way developers play with mechanics, sometimes do meta things to really make your encounter with an antagonist memorable and interesting and cool as both a test, but also as something just emotionally, like, evocative. And yeah, I really appreciate you, Zach, putting yourself through that, all of those bosses to show off the game, and also the insane editing work you did to make this thing fit together into 45 to 46 minutes, however long we continue to keep talking. Yeah, I'm happy I was here to witness it, and we finally got through it on our road to 100 episodes.
Yeah, oh boy, I'm probably going to have to do about as much editing if I do XCOM 2 next, because that's also another one I've been wanting to do. But after this one, I don't know if I want to do as much editing, but I'd love to do XCOM 2. But for right now, we're not at XCOM 2. We're at the end of Furi, and like Brandon and I said, we're at the road to 100. If you want to stick around for that, if you want to give us comments about some of your favorite episodes of BZ, that would all be appreciated. And yeah, I think we'll cut it here. So I hope Brandon has a good night, and then I hope the audience has a good day or night or whatever time it is that you may be watching this. I don't know what time it is for you. You could be watching this on lunch break or right before bed or even while you sleep. I don't care. You can watch this while you sleep. Have a good night.
Yeah, if you're watching it while you're driving, that's fine too.